listening to
A to the K.
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 A to the K. Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.
So, Carl, I feel it's only right that we talk about the worst gimmick matches of all time. Let's do this.
I think that would be a good segment to discuss.
Now,
and it's a long time overdue. Like, we've had a lot of pay-per-view chats the last couple of weeks, so we are back on the original segment.
We've been promoting this like the hacker, but we're actually going to follow through with it. So you're good with that, right? But yeah, so we're finally getting to it. And yes, I do keep looking down at my phone. Sorry, guys. I'll be back with you in a sec. So, Carl, do you want to kick off with your first pick for one of the? Have we got a strict set of numbers? I might do some honourable mentions. We'll keep it to a tight 10. I might do some honourable mentions where we don't really discuss them too much, but we'll throw them in there anyway.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not? So, yeah, do you want to kick us off with your first pick?
Yes. So, by all accounts, this is not in any particular order. This is just a list of gimmick matches that came to mind when we were thinking about this segment. And the one I want to kick off with today, probably quite prevalent in the heart and minds of many with the current state of WWE, is if you cast your mind back way back when, probably around 10 years or so ago,
right?
We had the custody of Dominic Mysterio being 4-4 in a match between Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio.
And I think we might have referenced this a few times during Dominic Mysterio's introduction to the WWE, because it's fucking crazy.
And like, I know he was probably old enough to understand it and all that kind of stuff as well, but like, being a dad as well, if you think about, regardless of whether you thought your kid was going to go into the business or was going to be successful in this or understand it or whatever, if you look at it, you're bringing your kid into a live audience of many, many thousands of people, telling him to act and pretend like, you might not have been his dad. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
I get it, compelling TV or not, like, that is a pretty shitty thing to do. And you'd have to be very, very mature as a fucking 9-10-year-old, however old he was, to kind of just go, yeah, I don't fully understand this and it doesn't bother me.
It's like, Uncle Eddie, who's normally a really nice guy, he's going to be a dick for a few weeks.
Exactly, right? So, now, he doesn't shut the fuck up about the guys. We clearly learned from his dad in that response, or that sense, rather. But, at the time, did he fully understand what was going on with Eddie and Ray and his mum and all this kind of storyline? But yeah, for me, you don't put the custody of your child on the line in a wrestling match, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm never overly comfortable when they try and bring their families into angles. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. For me, I'm never like, I don't mind the odd thing when like the Miz had his dad in the audience or whatever, but I'm never overly like, I'm not overly keen. Like, honestly, like, and it's not a big thing. It's not like I'm uncomfortable or like, I worry for them or anything like that. It's just like, does Dominic's current storyline feel better for having his sister and his mum there? No.
Does it fuck?
Point. It's just stuff like that. I'm like, why are we dragging these people? They're not wrestlers. They feel awkward because they're not normally out there on stage, and I don't know. Everything just feels a little bit more awkward because you're trying to introduce people who aren't part of the fray. Really, I don't know.
I feel like that could be a segment in itself. Just like the amount of wrestling siblings or whatever. Who like remember fucking Kurt Angle's brother who was there doing the fucking Bella Twin magic before it was a thing, rolling in out the ring, shaved his head and everything for the occasion. But yeah, I don't know. I just think how much shittier can you get than putting your fucking kids' custody on the line in a match? And obviously it wasn't really.
Thank God he won.
Well, exactly. Just for anyone out there, we're not fucking stupid, but as a concept, like putting your kids' custody on the line as a match stipulation, that's pretty low, to be fair. So for me, it's got to be mentioned as one of the shit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I don't think it was actually compelling enough to meditate. If you know what I mean? Like,
no,
for me, I remember it. I emotionally remember it because of Eddie doing the whole. Didn't he have like a shirt and everything where he was saying, "I'm your pappy"?
Well, do you know what I was going to say?
Eddie sold this. It wasn't Ray.
No. I think most of this was done as a merch sale gimmick for Eddie. He was probably like, "Oh, wouldn't I'm your pappy be a cool gimmick?" It's like, well, why don't you just be someone's pappy? Whose pappy can it be? Who's gonna be? Oh yeah, well, Ray's got a kid. Awesome. Like, I feel like that's how it started. It was a merch sales thing.
Like, hey Ray, can you borrow your kid?
Exactly. He's like, yeah, he's not doing nothing. Yeah, well, oh, he's in school. Yeah, fuck it, take him out of school. He's gonna be a wrestler anyway, whether he likes it or not. And then there he is now today on our screens.
Yeah,
Definitely not
it's crazy.
brainwashed by the
It is
Mysterio
crazy to
family.
think he's that kid, but. No, I was never. Luckily, they haven't tried to do many of these, or the whole fucking thing had turned into Jerry Springer. But that's an old reference, isn't it? Is he still around, guys?
I think
Anyone?
he came back not too long ago, to be fair, to do like his own version of it. But I think there was even a point in time where the bodyguard guy had his own talk show. That's
Really?
Steve, the bald guy. He had his own, yeah.
Was it? That's what it's called, Steve the Bald Guy.
Steve, the bald guy. I think it pretty much was called that. So yeah, interesting.
Okay, well, my first pick, Carl. Right, I'm going to throw out there one that's probably a little less common to you and me. But when I read what it was about, I was like, this is kind of fucking crazy. I don't know if I keep track of it, right? TNA had an inverted Royal Rumble. Not Royal Rumble, Battle Royal, whatever you want to call it, right? In which they start with 16 wrestlers outside the ring scrambling to get in. Right? But then, right, the 8 who managed to get in the ring then revert to a normal battle royal where they're trying to throw each other out the ring again. And then you're left with your final 2 who then have to battle with some sort of stipulation.
That sounds like a fucking Scott Steiner promo, honestly.
Honest to God, as a concept, and this is purely here because of the concept of it, that sounds like an absolute fucking mess. Like,
I mean,
Battle Royal, tried and tested, it works.
Was it a Russo gimmick? It sounds like a Russo gimmick. How do you take something
it might have been around when Russo was involved? Yes.
And you just go, do you know what? What can we do to flip that on its head and make it shit? I mean, I don't know.
Imagine doing it with anything else. Let's have a reverse cage match where they both fight outside of the cage. Like, okay.
The ones who make it into the cage get to have their ass kicked inside a cage. What? I'll just be like, nah, fuck it. See you later.
Do a reverse casket match where they both start in the casket and have to fight their way out of the casket.
So we're going to get 2 sweaty guys, stick them together in a missionary position inside a casket for a bit, and then we're going to expect them to come out. Okay.
Like, shit, Rick never made it out.
Hang on, nothing's happened for 20 minutes. Let me just check inside. Oh, no, they're making out. They're making out. What's happened?
But no, yeah, as a concept, I don't get how this was ever entertained as a thing. Like, what were they thinking? What were they thinking, Carl?
I mean, they probably weren't thinking. Let's be honest. That's
true. So yeah, a nice brief one, Carl, because there's not a lot we can say. It's not like they tried this way too much, and there's a lot of memorable matches to it. The concept as a whole is just like inverting something isn't a gimmick, guys. Come on.
No, so definitely sounds like something of Russo's wheelhouse there.
Oh,
and Russo, if you're listening, we do love you, but you're a mad bastard at the same time. So, second one, number 3. In fact, if we're doing this, number 3.
Number 3. Yeah.
Number 3. Well, yeah. See this right under the camera. Number 3. In this is the Ambrose Asylum, Anthony. Because, you know, when you've got a lunatic fringe, a cage match isn't good enough. Hell in a Cell match isn't good enough. Elimination Chamber isn't good enough. You have to have your own asylum with some weapons and shit.
Of course, yeah.
Because you're a lunatic.
But none that you're going to use that much.
No, of course not. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like Dean Ambrose would ever be in a match and threaten to use a lot of weapons like a chainsaw and then just not use any weapons.
Yeah. Plus, it was getting to that stakes, wasn't it? It's like, well, we're going to get to a point now where one of you is going to pull out a gun, and then what Trump's gun? Like,
well, exactly. He's taking his dead body and he's power driven him on the thumbtacks. Okay, yeah, he's still dead.
Okay. This man is quite literally beating a dead gimmick.
Well, exactly, right. But like, I just knowing Dean Ambrose as we know Dean Ambrose now, and I say this every time we talk about him. I didn't like him when he came to AEW. I thought he was still very much the lunatic fringe in an AEW world that didn't fit.
Yes.
Look at him today. he's not that anymore. He is
No.
Dean Ambrose.
It was a hard habit to break by the looks.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Like, he couldn't even, like, be... He was still so PG, you know what I mean? And now he's there, like, fucking effing and jeffing and whatever, and having a bit more about him. It's exactly what you want out of a character. But, you know, if you think back to WWE, they're like, well, Ambrose is meant to be a lunatic with a fringe. Where do lunatics live? In an asylum. Let's give him his own match. Where it's an asylum match. Yeah.
We have to have the match because we made the shirt now. So.
Well, exactly.
It does make me laugh, like, because it was so PG. He's like, he's a lunatic, and he comes out and he's like, I'm gonna flipping beat you. Yeah. Not allowed to. Like, you can't be edgy. I'm sorry, he did much more crazy things in Ring of Honor. He's sort of almost back on form in AEW. He couldn't be you had to repackage him, and you didn't. He couldn't be the lunatic in WWE. It was never going to work unless you went for an actual lunatic who just sat talking to himself and wore a straitjacket.
Exactly, and like another reason it makes it onto the list is because how good is Jericho at coming up with new matches? He invented Money in the Bank. He invented Elimination Chamber. He invented fucking Stadium Stampede. He invented
I'm sorry,
I
don't mean to change what this segment's about. He invented Elimination Chamber.
He invented Elimination Chamber.
I fell into kayfabe there because obviously kayfabe-wise, it was the introduction of Bischoff. So I've never been sure who actually created that because obviously that was just kayfabe, that was the story. But it was actually the brainchild of Jericho, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
So he's been involved in the creation of many a gimmick match. And unfortunately, he was Ambrose's opponent in this match.
Yes, he was.
And, you know, I feel like it tarnishes his reputation because I don't believe this was a gimmick match that he had much involvement in. So, you know, you think of gimmick matches with Jericho and you think of this and you go, don't want to sound too William Regal, but it besmirches his record, shall we say.
The only thing I would say, as far as gimmick matches that Ambrose has had, this is miles better than his match with Brock Lesnar.
That is true, actually. But that one wasn't even really a fucking gimmick match, was it? That was sold
as
like
no holds barred or something.
Yeah. And it was like, oh no, he's got a chainsaw, Jesus. And then it was like, German suplex, maybe hit you with a chair once. The end. And it was like,
I'd have been more sold on that if Ambrose it would have squashed Ambrose massively, but he would have come out with the chainsaw and Brock wearing ass. He just kicked him and started suplexing him everywhere. I'd have been much more sold on that. But no, exactly, like, you didn't even see the damn chainsaw.
You can't like do all this ahead of the match, like and then just not use it in the match at all. Like Jesus. But yeah, so for me, the Ambrose Asylum sucked, and I'm glad Dean Ambrose is dead.
Yeah, long live the Mox.
Long live the Mox.
There's nobody Mox.
Nobody Mox. If you Mox, then better not Mox. You know what I'm saying?
And just like nobody Spears. So my next pick, Carl, is a very recent one, and I've been moaning about it for a while now, and it's the eye for an eye match. I'm willing to suspend disbelief most of the time. I'm well aware that this is a soap opera for men. I totally get that, right? However, when you're trying to get me to believe that the stipulation of the one who wins is the one who rips out his opponent's eye, and I'm meant to believe that that's what's happened, and you even put a false eye out there and try and make it look real, I just, no. Like, this is the thing, right? And I don't want to go like, look, I'm a smart ass, this is the way you should have done it. But like, they done this whole kayfabe, you like ruined my eye on the step or whatever, right? They done that whole thing, right? And I can live with that. That wasn't too bad. Rey Mysterio should have gone an eye for an eye and done an I Quit match. That's what he should have done, right? Then it would have been a believable match, and he could have had a long, nice, proper fight with Rollins. Could have been a spectacular show of wrestling, and ultimately one of them actually said I quit. Obviously Rey, right? But no, instead we get this hokey, stupid bullshit where I'm meant to look at this fake eye and believe to the point now that Rey is still wearing a fucking eye patch and pretending he can't see, right? Not to step on Raw, Carl, because I know you're going to talk about it, but he actually instructed his wife to hit Murphy with a kendo stick this week, right? Because he can't see. He even gestured to his eye, like his depth perception's fucked up, so you'll have to do the kendo stick. You've been 619 and people for fucking weeks.
Like he's fought how many matches with one eye, but he can't possibly hit someone
Couldn't
with
swing a
fucking
kendo stick. So yeah, I can't get behind a gimmick that's just almost too ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I'm well aware that we've had Bury Live matches and the rings on fire kind of matches and stuff like that. I don't care. This is probably the most ridiculous one.
Yeah, massively is because it stemmed from a fucking weird little angle they did around putting someone's eye into the steel steps. Yay! And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we better make Extreme Rules a horror concept and have it like this was the whole reason Extreme Rules had the horror show at Extreme Rules was because of well, let's do something with an eye. Wouldn't it be funny? Like you can imagine it now. That'd be some good shit. Imagine if we had a fake eye. Like these are the people running the shows that we watch every week, and it's like, really, you want us to watch this shit? And it was awful. Like the match was awful, and the finish was awful. It felt like it was what happened on Raw a couple of weeks before, except this time his eye fell out, and it was like, okay, so if it happens twice, your eye falls out. Then sound.
Apparently,
It was
yeah.
shit. It was bullshit.
Ridiculous, totally ridiculous match. And again, like I'm all for trying new things, but they must have known this was not going to work. They must have known this was going to be hokey as fucking shit.
Yeah.
And then they still don't let up because then we get Aleister Black getting the same treatment. Not quite eye out, but get his eye on the step. Stop squashing people's eye on the step. It's not convincing. For God's sake, he's even stopped wearing his stupid little headscarf this week. Again, stepping on Raw. Sorry, Carl.
Well, yeah.
So, your next pick, Carl. Number 4. Is it 4? Number 5.
Is it 5? Number 5.
I've done 2, and you've done 2, right? Have you done 2? You started it, so you've done 2, and I've done 2, so we're good.
Yeah, number 5 time.
See, we're so organised, guys. This is really professional setup, professional cameras, everything. We're great.
This one is a hardcore match.
Okay.
Unlike any other.
Okay.
Because what is the key stipulation? How do you elevate a hardcore match that one step further, Anthony?
Set someone on fire.
Well, that's what many thought. But what you do is you get 2 really old dudes in Pat Patterson and Joe Briscoe, and you make them wear an evening gown. Yeah. Because yeah, so it's an evening gown hardcore match that took place at King of the Ring 2000. And do you know why it was funny? Because Pat Patterson's gay in real life.
And Vince of course, so put him in a dress.
To make not only him dress in drag, but make Joe Briscoe, the guy who just fired last week, dress in drag as well. And have it be a hardcore match because yeah, I don't know.
You still need it to be manly?
Like,
fucking hell, Vince.
Like, what? I honestly don't understand what the fuck happened with this one. So, yeah, we've had many a bra and panty, an evening gown, rip people's clothes off type of match. We get it. We've had many hardcore kind of match. Yeah, hit people with stuff. We get it. Smashing the two together with Joe Briscoe and Pat Patterson. Not sure I get it. Yeah, don't get it. Don't get it. So yeah, like this was awful. It was a terrible match. It was a terrible concept. It gave the hardcore title the same kind of treatment that the 24/7 title gets on a daily basis today. It just felt shit, and it was awful.
That's fair.
Well, this is my summary.
I think a good way of leading on to the next one then, Carl, because you've kind of touched on it, and I was almost loath whether to put this on, right? Because my next one is going to be the concept of sort of a couple of gimmicks, I suppose, where there's a bra and panties match, or you have to strip your opponents, and this leads on from yours because this is traditionally done with the female wrestlers, and this is some of the reason I was a bit loath to put it on because it was purely a product of its time. It's not like they're still doing this shit now. WWE, please do not do this shit now, right? Mm-hmm. But this was like women weren't allowed to be in like good match types. They were like relegated to like bra and panties match. I remember this even being one of the match types on I think it was Just Bring It, SmackDown Just Bring It, where you could actually you could have the wrestlers do a bra and panties match. It's just ridiculous. Like the sum total of female wrestling in the Attitude Era was to just undress each other, like because don't need to actually wrestle there. And don't get me wrong, I'll be completely honest here. Teenage Anthony and Teenage Carl, they never objected to these matches. But when you look at it through our eyes now and go, like, we've got to a point where they're having cage matches and legitimate fucking brilliant matches, and I'm still going to harp on Thunder Rosa versus Hikaru Shida. Brilliant match. Amazing match. And we're getting to that sort of point now. But when you look back, and this is, again, some of the reason I was been a bit loath to put it on because it is just a product of its time. But it has to be listed because, I don't know, you look at it and go, how was this ever a thing? This was just aggressive stripping.
There was times when, and this, I don't mean this to sound wrong, there was times when you had the likes of like a Terry Runnels, a Jacqueline, a Sonny, a Sable, people like that who, they weren't great wrestlers. They were there, they were hired and were there to be eye candy in an era of wrestling that was the Attitude Era, where they wanted to get people to tune in to see tits, ass, swearing, and violence, right? And that's what it was for that time, right?
It's funny, so I distinctly remember, I think the minute it solidified what women were to WWE at the time for me was, do you remember when they done, was it the Diva Search or whatever, and you had Christy Hemme?
Oh yeah.
And they were done this whole thing about like, I can't even remember the segment fully, but they were like they had to try and do this sort of promo on ice cream. And she was going on about ice cream's her favourite thing to play in. And then they just start throwing ice cream and stuff. And you're like, that's what they thought of women back then. Like, that's all it was. It's just eye candy, it's just 100%. Tits and ass, like you say. And it's just, it was totally ridiculous. Totally ridiculous.
Yeah. So like for me, and in that scenario, in that time where you had women who couldn't wrestle but were getting TV time, and they were there solely for the fact that they had that certain kind of look and that willingness to show off and whatever, like you can understand it as a gimmick match to a degree. Like, poor taste today. Back then, okay, you can see it, right? Where I draw the line on it is when you have the likes of Trish Stratus and Lita competing in a bra and panties match. When the pair of them put in so much fucking time, effort, and work to become fantastic wrestlers, and that's the opportunity they were given to put on bra and panties matches. And it's like, well, hang on. Those two were fucking decent. They could go in the ring and they could have done for women's wrestling back then what we've tried to do now. So that rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And bear in mind, like, Trish Stratus was a woman who spent her time, she can be considered a legend in WWE now, and she was legitimately good in the ring. And she had to go through gimmicks where Vince McMahon made her bark like a dog in the ring. I don't know if you remember that. And she'd have to put up with shit like that to try and elevate women's wrestling to a point that they don't have to do that embarrassing shit
Do you know what? Like, I don't want to go off topic. Do you know what I respect so much about Trish Stratus is that she came into the business as a fitness model, didn't have a fucking clue. But instead of just going like, do you know what? I'm going to bark like a dog. I'm going to just strip down every 2 seconds. I'm going to be put, like, her tag team was Test and Albert, TNA, because as in Trish Stratus got tits and ass. That was the gimmick. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you go from that to becoming like fucking multi-time women's champ. Fantastic. Set, like, stealing the show. The first women's main event on a Raw with her and Lita. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
She was a trailblazer in this business for that reason.
And this is why we need to talk about the women's evolution, Carl. Because like, she legitimately, like, she proved that if you're talented as well, you can actually elevate yourself even further. That she almost one of many women's wrestlers, by the way, who proved a point that, it's not just about the looks.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Did I have a poster of Trish Stratus on my wall? Yes, I had several.
Of course you did.
But was that the only talent she had? Was it? Fuck. She developed so much in that time that she was there to become this multi-time women's champ and become so good in the ring. Like, I have nothing but respect for her. And like, looking back now, thinking at a time when she had already developed these skills and was a fantastic in-ring performer, to have to participate in a bra and panties match because that was what was happening is shocking. So yeah, fundamentally agree. This was a terrible, terrible gimmick match when you were putting women in who actually could wrestle.
Yeah. And honestly, like, the only more cringeworthy thing, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, would be doing like a live sex show, but that way in a match, so we can't really count it.
Yeah. Although we did get to see Lita's boob. So, there's still part of me which, regardless, it was a good time, I'm just going to throw it out there.
To be honest, like, the more you think about that, you're like, so she actually had her boobs out? Because, like, the idea was they were meant to be under the covers, and you believe that that's what they were doing. But then there was a wardrobe malfunction, so you go right. So you actually got undressed under there. What? Why?
Yeah, it was a bit
We weren't
silly,
meant to
wasn't
see
it?
anything. So anyway,
Yeah. But yeah, so I will move swiftly on out of the concept of bras and panties into Halloween Havoc 1991
okay,
for
this
a
is
match
incredibly specific.
for a match so interesting and so unique. It was only ever done the one time, mainly because the fact it was fucking awful. It was
Okay.
the Chamber of Horrors match, and yeah, it was the concept of like similar to a cage match almost. You would have many superstars in there, all fighting against each other and all that good stuff. Except, you get to kill a guy at the end, which is, which is, a different.
Of course, yeah,
It's
to kill
yeah,
a
it's
guy.
different. It's different, shall we say? But yeah, Abdullah the Butcher, who was in WCW at the time from ECW, actually got electrocuted on live TV. It wasn't real because you could clearly see that when they turned the switch on, like about 5 minutes into the match, and nothing happened. And then the referee had to like turn the switch off and then like turn it back on again for the end segment. But it was an interesting concept, shall we say?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was similar to like a cage match almost, but there was all these other kind of booby traps and like things in there, and there was a few different guys in there. I think the Steiner brothers was in it. There was I think about six or eight guys in there or something in the match, and yeah, it was just awful. It was just so poorly thought out, and the finish of it being like, we're gonna put him in, put Abdullah the Butcher in an electric chair and shock him and kill him. That was the finish, and it was like, okay,
What?
it's definitely a finish. Yeah, so. I don't suppose you ever saw this way back in the day.
Sadly, I can't help you with that.
To be honest, I didn't see it live or anything, but I've heard the rumors. I've seen the clips ever since, and yeah, it is an interesting one to say the least.
Yeah, it's it's similar to the eye to eye thing where you go, well, how can you pay that off realistically?
Who knows?
That's what ruins it straight out the gate. Is how are you going to pay that off with any sort of realism at all? You can't. Crazy stuff. Well, my next one is not going to be anywhere near as nuts, but I need to moan about it for a sec, right? And that is somebody dangling in a cage above the ring match. I don't know what you technically call it, right? But have these ever been entertaining? Have you ever seen one that's been entertaining?
No.
Like the two that come to my mind straight away, I think Kevin Owens and Jericho did one, didn't they?
Yeah.
And Enzo Amore had to do one with Big Cass. And both times they're the two I recall in recent memory, right? Where they're like, you've got your partner dangling above you in the ring. Like, what's the fucking point in this? It adds nothing other than being able to hear them verbally heckle or panic or whatever. I've never got this as a concept. This whole is it called a shark cage? That little cage that they're in.
Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah.
I'm all for there's a belt dangling up there, but the object isn't even to get up there and free them, which would make a little bit more sense. It's just they're there. Like, I've never understood why this is a thing or why they keep going back to it. I'm hoping they're done with it. I've not seen one in a while, but the whole concept, I'm like, it detracts from the match that I want to see. That's all it does for me. Like, I would much more enjoy the match without the tit dangling above the ring. How do you feel about it, Carl?
I mean, are we still talking about the Shark Tank match, or have we gone back to the bra and panties match? Is it?
I don't even know anymore.
There's tits dangling above the ring. Okay, that's a match I can get behind. No, I think like you're absolutely right. They don't serve any purpose. Like, for me, it's almost a variation on the something on a pole match, except you can't do or use anything that's on the pole. I think it's meant to be like, well, you're fighting for whatever's in the cage, but they're just there.
See, I don't know if was there something on a pole match? Is that listed in yours? Because I know I've not got it in mine.
I don't think it is listed in mine. Actually.
I think I've put it in the honourable mentions potentially, but that it is like we might as well tackle that at the same time. It's like like I think we've seen stupid the on a pole matches where the poles fell over as well. It's like,
Well, I mean,
I don't know if you remember that. Or didn't they have one where it was Viagra? That was the thing they had to get from the pole. Like, there's been loads of
yeah.
mad shit with that. It's a very similar
So
concept where it's like it doesn't really add anything to the match.
no, I think in WCW, obviously the Viagra one was a WCW thing. It was, I think it was Billy Kidman and maybe Conan. I could be wrong, but they were
Look at
basically
our resident wrestling historian at it again. Look at that, just from the
they
top of his head, everyone.
they were running an angle, I think, where Conan or whoever it was had said that they had basically shacked up with Tori Wilson, who was the real life wife of Billy Kidman at the time. And apparently the problem was he couldn't get it up. So therefore they had a Viagra on a pole match, and that's the way to settle that feud.
Of course.
So, like, you wonder why WCW went under, like with such stellar storytelling like they had. But yeah, I just, yeah, so whether it's a Shark Tank or whether it's something on a pole, they never, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, to be fair, like the whole Shark Tank thing, you can't, they're just there, just watching on above, and like, I guess
Yeah.
you win whatever's in the tank,
Like,
fine.
I kind of get the idea, like they're trying to go, well, you can't interfere, right? But then that would work for me if that stipulation had been put in a million times. People where they go, they can't be by the ring or you lose the match. So you don't have to lock them in a cage to make sure they don't interfere with the match. It's not a thing. It never has been a thing. So like you say, it's like, yeah, you won him. You won a
He's yours
life-size
now.
Enzo. Yay.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally crazy. Cause again, I've never been invested in the matches that they've done with these things.
No,
Although,
definitely gimmick matches for gimmick reason, I would say.
Yeah. So your next one.
So the next one on my list, I've just got the blindfold match. So for me, if you're a wrestler, your whole premise about you is the fact that you get in a wrestling ring and you size up your opponent and you wrestle them and you try and become a victor and, win the match. Awesome.
Yeah.
When you got a blindfold on, when does it ever go anything other than for a good half an hour until someone realizes where the other one is? And then there's always the whole drop toe hold maneuver where someone's just lying there on the floor waiting for them and then they drop them. Like, it's so formulaic. It's stupid. Like, if you look at the caliber of people who've been in these matches, quick Google search I've just done right now. So, right, WrestleMania 7, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Rick Martel. That was probably the first one that was on the main event stage, right? Then you've got Santino versus Drew McIntyre. No one Drew like we know him now. Really? Yeah, Triple H versus D'Lo Brown. John Cena versus Daivari. Like, these are guys who, like, really, you're gonna have a blindfold match? I just don't see the point in it. It is a proper gimmick. It doesn't get anything over. There's no real reason to have this gimmick match. It doesn't make any sense. Like, in what circumstances can you only settle a rivalry or a feud by blindfolding each other? It doesn't, like, probably the only time it would make sense is when, like Rey Mysterio, you've lost an eyeball, and so you both become blindfolded. Something like that might make sense because he's lived the last few months with only one eye. That might make sense. But just, well, we're going to have a blindfold match. Why?
Yeah, like,
tell me why.
Any reason? Wrestling become too easy for you, so you thought, let's give yourself a challenge.
So, yeah, for me, like, I don't know what your thoughts are, but there's no reason whatsoever to have a blindfold match. It is a stupid concept that should never exist.
No, I totally agree. All this does is affect the quality of the wrestling in the ring. Like, if you're going to do it, it's going to have to be an incredibly short fucking match because that's not going to be entertaining for very long. And I dare say not entertaining from the off, to be honest with you.
Well, you think so, but obviously, as I said, every match starts with, for a good 5 minutes until they figure out where the opponent is. And then when they finally figured out where they are, the opponent's moved. And then it's another 5 minutes of trying to figure out, like, really?
So this is like Marco Polo, but without the pool.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now all we need is a Mimosa Mayhem blindfold match, and then we've got everything.
Maybe pitch it to Jericho. He's good with gimmicks.
Well, he listens.
You know what? Like, it's funny because you probably pitch it to him, he'd do it, and we'd be like, "Wow, that was fucking amazing!" Like, he's so good at what he does because he pulls it off somehow.
Well, he is Le Champion.
Le
There's a
Champion.
reason he is where he is.
He is the million viewer man or something he's put up quite recently, which I thought was funny as fuck.
He's a fucking legend, isn't he? The demo god, champion, the million viewer man.
To be honest, it's something that probably should have been in the ringside report, but we can always mention it when we're talking about Dynamite. But yeah, that.
I would love it if he goes full Daenerys Targaryen, and before he's announced, he has about 50 fucking names to refer to him before he actually says his name.
Yeah. Coming to the ring, the demo god, the million viewer man, Le Champion.
Yeah, you know, like,
Breaker of Gains.
Yeah, I love it. I would love it. It would fit him to a T as well.
Yeah, it would. To be fair, you never know. It might cross his mind at some point. Maybe he listens to this show. Who knows? You know, to get tips for his podcast.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, let's be honest. WWE listen to us and they book things like the good things that you see on WWE. That's because of us. AEW, we've seen a couple of things happen from us before as well.
Yeah.
You know, Jericho's podcast is pretty much just taking the good stuff that we've said and just, you know, putting his Jericho spin on it. So
exactly.
Fair play to the guy. We're happy to help him. He is the champion.
That's what we're here for, guy.
The demo god, the $1 million, whatever he is. Yeah.
And I know Jericho, but honestly, we look up to you. It's not the other way around, I promise you.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, what number are we on now, Carl? Was that your last, was it?
That was my second to last, so we must be on 8.
Okay, so we're on 8. I didn't keep track of the numbers, but hey ho, my next one, Carl, and I'm going to need your help with this because I'm bringing it on because of how fucked up this sounds as a concept, but I never saw it. I'm confident you have. And this is Henry Godwinn versus Triple H in a hog pen match.
Yeah.
And in your house. In your house 5, I believe. So the gimmick being that Triple H at that point was going through his pompous posh guy gimmick. He wasn't the game. And Henry Godwinn was a farmer. And like the concept of going, well, fuck it, he's a farmer. Let's have a match in a hog pen with mud and stuff.
I mean, it's pretty much how it happened, to be fair. There's not really much else to say about it. So it was in like, I think it was one of the In Your Houses. And Triple H, as you said, was very much the aristocrat of WWE. He was the posh Greenwich blue blood, whatever. And Henry Godwinn was just a fucking batshit crazy pig farmer who wanted to get sloppy and dirty. And so the whole premise of the match was Triple H going, "Oh no, I'm dirty," and that was pretty much all that happened.
And do you know what? The weird thing, right? For me, I'm looking at this from fresh eyes, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this because I'm looking at it like that sounds like a fucking stupid idea, right? And it's going in my list as like just a god awful gimmick match, but it's weirdly memorable. Like a lot of people remember it. Like it's got fond memories for Triple H who was in the match, but it's got like people remember Triple H being in this match. Do you look at this fondly? Is this like oh yeah, I'll never forget that, even as cringeworthy and as weird as it was?
Do I fuck? The only thing I remember about this match was, other than the gimmick battle royal, it was the last time I saw Hillbilly Jim, because obviously he was special guest referee because he was a hillbilly.
Of course,
there was pigs involved. So like literally, there's nothing about this match that I go, this was a stellar piece of work. Like for Triple H, in fairness, before he became what he was, it was a breakout moment for him to say, "Well, I can do this."
I think it's important to remember like that he wasn't the game at that point. So I think in all fairness, yeah.
And like to be fair, this was probably, and I could be wrong, but this was probably hot off the click thing where where Hall and Nash fucked off and Triple H was getting punished.
Your points. Yeah, this wouldn't have been far off it because wow, it was early 90s, 95, I want to say. In Your House, or that particular In Your House was 95. I'm confident.
Yes, 95. Actually, so it could have. I don't know. Could it have been before then? Maybe it was before then. I don't know. But it was around that time where it was either before he became on his ascent to superstardom, or it was the point where he was about to be, and then he got fucked over.
Yeah. So it's before he had his push, or when he fucking ruined his push. One of the two.
Exactly. So one of the two. But I think if anything, it showed that he could do those like comedic kind of matches where, you know, as a fan who supported Henry Godwinn, because why wouldn't you? You just wanted to see Triple H get his face fucking slammed in a puddle of mud because he was a fucking like pompous prick. So, you know, at the time it was like, yeah, this is awesome. But, you know, when you look back at it and go, would I ever want to see one of these matches again? No, I would not. But yeah, I guess I can see why there's fond memories from a lot of people who think about it and look back on it. But it's definitely not a defining moment in terms of gimmick matches, shall we say.
Yeah. No, I get that. So yeah, it turns out it is as I see it. Then it's got some fun memories for some people, but yeah, all in all, fucking crazy gimmick. Not the worst we've seen by any means, but a crazy gimmick, and going on my list for that reason.
Nonetheless.
So number 10, 9, Carl. Number 9, Carl.
Number 9.
I don't know.
So my last one is the hair versus hair match. So we've seen it happen a lot. Like several times.
I think we're too British for this because I was like, so it's hair versus hair.
Yeah,
but I get what you mean. Hair versus hair over there.
Hair versus hair over there. No, so I think it's one of them where way back when in like the territories, like the 80s, where everyone had a fucking mullet and they loved having big long hair. Absolutely, this is a stellar gimmick. You know, a Ric Flair of the 80s would not want to lose his magnificent locks. You know, you get it. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But then you've got...
Because there was a time you could have done hair versus hair, Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels, and that would have been a thing. Not anymore. Not for either of you now.
Well, exactly. But I mean, even thinking back to Kurt Angle versus Edge, Kurt Angle very clearly balding at the time. Edge was full on lock of hair. And you're like, who's going to lose their hair tonight? It's like, really?
As a young person at that point, I can't remember how old I was. A teenager, I think. I honestly didn't know who was going to win. Looking back now, it was fucking obvious. But there you go.
Well, you know, I've always been the smark of the business, as you can probably imagine. I am one of those people. That is me. That's who I am. I always know what's going on, or at least I like to think I do. But yeah, so for that particular match, you know, obviously you knew when you had Vince versus Donald Trump, you pretty much knew it was Vince who was getting his haircut. When you had fucking, you had Sonya versus Mandy recently, didn't you? Like, just coming to me head then, and that was like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore now. But it was like, well, okay. Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, I think back, and I feel really, really like, I feel bad about this in the one sense, but I also think what a woman she was. Is Mighty Molly or Molly Holly at the time? Probably. She, like, the only way she would get on WrestleMania is if she did a hair versus hair match. Like, she was not going to be on that card, and she wanted to be on it so badly. She even said, "Well, what if you do hair versus hair and you can shave my head?" And it's like, well, fucking hell, Molly! Like, Jesus Christ, that is amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, for someone to just go, well, like in that circumstance, it matters because that's, you know what I mean? It's a whole different thing.
Oh yeah.
When you've got fucking these guys who are going fucking bald anyway, and it's like, well, I'm going to cut your hair off. Like, I think Jeff Jarrett had one at one point, and it was like, well, he wasn't going bald, but at the same time, he didn't want to have a mullet anymore. So it was like, well, that makes sense. And it's like, I don't know. I don't really see the value in them as a concept in the modern era. But I will say, I think with all due respect to Molly, you know, you can definitely see a time and a purpose where these kind of matches you've got to respect. But on the most, to be honest,
part, I think the Edge versus Christian one was actually really quite well executed because it led to this little funny gimmick where Angle was pretending he hadn't lost his hair and was wearing a wig. Remember he had the wrestling guard on that to keep his wig in place, and it led to a few comedic moments from Angle. And at that point, you never really got to see Angle do a lot of comedy, so I quite enjoyed some of the stuff that came from the match. Not so much.
Can I call you back out?
Go on.
You said the Edge versus Christian one.
Yes.
Damn. Come on.
Damn.
I might say fucking TNA, but you say Edge versus Christian. Sorry.
It's 1-1, Carl. It's 1-1.
But
stay tuned, guys. We'll see how this match ends.
Well, I think the Kurt Angle thing that you mentioned was fantastic, and the fact that he used his little wrestling like ear muffle protector thing to like keep his wig on. Yeah. Like Angle is one of the most fucking comedic geniuses.
Oh yeah, he's got like, such surprisingly good comic timing.
Credit.
For someone who's come out of this from being an Olympic wrestler to a WWE wrestler to just a fucking hell funny guy. It's just like one of the absolute memorable moments of my childhood was Kurt Angle's feud with John Cena and that rap he did. He's just fucking legend.
Oh my god. Like, still, every couple of months, I watch that rap because it's so funny.
It is. It's so
It's
well
like,
executed.
still to this day, it's so good.
Yeah, you can't
So
beat it.
good.
But so I mean, the only way I could see it working now is if you had somebody who was totally fucking deluded, like you had Corbin challenge someone to a hair versus hair match, and they have to gently tell him that you have everything to lose.
Like stuff like that, though, I would be on board with. To be honest, I want you in a hair versus hair, and it's like, really?
Yeah, love it. So yeah, I totally get that. So I'm gonna end, Carl, with and we could. I don't think I suppose it's worth doing honourable mentions because they're. I think we've listed the best ones.
They're just mentions at this point. There's no honor. They're just
Yeah.
mentions.
I've been up and down on this, and I've decided I'm gonna have to end, and it can't not be mentioned, right? And I'll kind of cover two in a sense, but Big Show having a sumo wrestle.
Akibono, what?
Now, the reason I'm going to mention two is because this to me is similar to the Brawl for All, where you're trying to do something legit in a fake world, right? So it didn't work. It didn't execute in that well. But it isn't so much about the gimmick. It's about having to see Big Show in a fucking thong, essentially. We should never have had to see that.
No.
Now, but joking aside, like this was like it was. I don't know. It's such a strange concept to do. Like Big Show's there for his stature, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's not. He had absolutely no connection to sumo wrestling. This was done, I imagine, to bring the numbers in to go. Well, we've got. Sorry, you said it was Aki Bono, and it's done with that kind of thing. And I know they've kind of pushed into the sumo stuff before with Yokozuna, but they've never really actually had a sumo match. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Carl.
No.
But it's similar. Not similar, but like in a similar concept, like the Brawl for All, where they tried to do an actual shoot boxing fight, but then tried to control the outcome. Like how?
Yeah.
Imagine having a legitimate boxing tournament and telling somebody you have to win this. You're the one we want to win, so you're going to go and embark on annihilates everyone, and then gets knocked out by an actual boxer. Both as a concept, like stop doing real things. You're not.
There are so many things I want to say about both of them segments. Like, honest to fucking God. Like, first of all, the Big Show. How does he find himself in every single gimmick match ever? Like, he had a sumo match. He followed up a year or two later with Floyd Mayweather in a fucking boxing match. Like, this dude just gets around, doesn't he? But right.
Well, he's been like, not to digress, but like he's even been involved in just lazy ones. I remember, was it Mark Henry he went up against in a stairs match? Just stairs.
Well, do you remember they changed it from TLC to TLC and S? Table, ladders, chairs, and stairs. They changed the pay-per-view name to TLC and S.
We see, this is the bit that always put. Not to digress, and we will get back to this too. But it's like, so you're going to limit them. They can use weapons, but only the stairs. Using anything else, you're disqualified. You can use the stairs.
It's like, how often do you use the stairs anyway? Like,
why not make it a no DQ match, you fucking lunatics?
Exactly. Right. What the fuck? But yeah, like, for me, and I think we said about Yokozuna in the past as well. Well, just then, but Yokozuna was he was not Japanese. He was Samoan. He was part of the fucking Anoa'i family, but he played a Japanese sumo, right, as his gimmick.
WWE.
Fucking well, of course, right. But Akibono was quite a major kind of Japanese like mega sumo star, which would have been cool, except none of the American or UK or anyone else knew who the fuck he was.
Yeah,
so he got
this isn't like
in.
trying to get like Tyson Fury or someone in where the US know who he is.
Well, exactly, right? So it's like, well, okay, Big Show's going to take on Akibono, and it's like, what? He's taking on Bono from U2. What? What the fuck? What? Who?
Aki what?
Aki who? So there was that aspect of it, which kind of fucked that one up. But then the fact it was a fucking sumo match anyway, yeah, because Big Show's had years of sumo training, like that.
He knows exactly what's going to happen, yeah.
And then, as you said, we got to see his fucking fat ass in the thong, which no one wants to see. Rikishi's bad enough, but Big Show, yeah, that's a step too far, right? And then you had the Brawl for All. What a fucking like we could probably do a whole podcast on what a mind fuck that
I would
was,
love to cover the Brawl for All in some more detail, because what a fucking mess this ended up being.
Legit, like, I don't want to say too much then if we are going to cover this, but obviously this was set up to push Dr. Death, Steve Williams.
This is the funny thing, though, this is what really gets me, is like, he's there like, oh, so I'm gonna get a push from this, and like, yeah, and like, but it's a legitimate boxing fight, so win.
Well, he was JR's baby. He was an Oklahoma guy. He was a tough guy. He'd had like shoot fighting background, whatever. So JR was like, this guy is the fucking bee's knees. He is gonna twat everyone. And it was like, okay, yeah, he's fucked. He's fucked.
Yeah.
He's out. And it was like,
And it's surprising everyone's like, shit, Bart Gunn's got a cannon. Like, wow, he's tearing through everyone. But
well, exactly.
funnily enough,
And it just
Bart
goes to
Gunn
show
is not an actual boxer.
Well, exactly, and it's such like short-minded booking. Like they had like this whole tournament was set up by Vince Russo because he wanted someone to knock the fuck out of JBL. That was like legitimately.
Imagine setting up an entire gimmick just
honestly,
to have JBL get
the
knocked
whole
out.
reason this was set up is because he wanted someone to knock Bradshaw out because he ran his
Don't
mouth
be
a
wrong,
lot and
Russo,
thought he was
like,
a big guy.
Again, we love you, and we totally understand the edge to want to have JBL knocked out. But this is an extreme way to go about it.
A little bit. But yeah, like obviously, so they set that up for Dr. Death, and then they set it up for JBL to get battered, and Dr. Death got eliminated fucking way too soon. JBL went on way too far, ended up getting knocked out eventually by Bart Gunn, and then before you knew it, Bart Gunn was your champion, and it was like, well, shit, what do we do with this guy now? He can't cut a promo. He's not over with the fans. What do we do? I don't know. We'll book him against fucking Butterbean, and he got knocked the fuck out.
Butterbean, and it lasted seconds because Butterbean
ridiculously
knocked him the fuck out.
shocking. Like even by WWE standards, it was ridiculously shocking. It was awful that they ever put him in there with a professional boxer. It was awful. And I remember watching that live, not even knowing too much about the whole situation, going, this guy's gonna get fucking killed. And he did. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, like what is this? But yeah, like wow.
Yeah. So that was almost a bit of a bonus one as well, but I couldn't not list them where they've tried to do something. And this Raw Underground isn't quite this. Like, I hate when they try and do a shoot thing when it's like, no, just stick with what you know, right? And they're trying to claim Underground is like a worked shoot. It's bollocks because it's just slightly more aggressive wrestling. There's no way it's shoot. There's no way that again, sorry to digress, but like I watched Kevin Owens versus Aleister Black, and it was like, yeah, you're not actually hitting each other though, so it's not really a shoot, is it? You're throwing, you're throwing there's no way you're putting full impact into them bollocks. No, I don't believe it for one sec. So it's a work. Don't pretend it's not.
Oh yeah,
it's because you took the ropes off the ring.
That makes it legit.
Oh yeah, it's legit because now you can fall out and then just fight with random people in the audience for a while. Anyway, that is our unique segments of the week. So we hope you enjoyed it. Next week we're going to cover the best gimmick matches, which is probably going to be harder, to be honest, because usually they go the other fucking direction. But best gimmick matches, right? And I'll promise you now, there are some good ones on there. Carl even alluded to a couple that Jericho himself created, and we will probably talk about one or two of them. But there we have it. The worst gimmick matches. Do you agree? Do you have more? We have more, but we're keeping it at 10 or however many we ended up on. I don't know. But, all good fun.